I think my voice needs to be connected to this. I've already posted this, but I've reread it several times. Anyways, I have two things that I could have corrected spelling, but I've decided to leave it as is, no edit for altering the post uh, metadata. But in reading it, I just want to, I want my voice connected to this. Quote, were detonated remotely and simultaneously, close quote. Quote, indiscriminate attacks, unheard of in history, close quote. This was the Chinese ambassador at the United Nations, a representative. China is holding back because China, just like me, already know it wasn't bombs. It is impossible for it to have been bombs. Impossible. However, there are other ways to cause the type of devices targeted without requiring physical contact with the devices at any point in the entire existence of the devices, from design to manufacture to shipping to sales to shipping to even a Mossad repair shop, in the event that that could be some kind of a mainstream news media narrative that they're pitching. I've only seen clickbait headlines. I have not seen any reports. So where was I at? Okay. Devices targeted, Mossad repair shop. Only the dumbest peon American scab Christian dipshit would believe Israel used bombs. Because you need to be able to believe the stupidest propaganda like a fictitious Jew's magic blood shed in a human sacrifice ritual ordained by his father in order to fight against evil is the key to saving your or our soul. Makes more sense than the current evolutionary theory that dates Homo erectus origins to roughly 4 million years ago and human Homo sapiens to 200,000. Go with the magic Jew. That's where I could have done some spelling correction, but we'll leave it. I mean, you get what I meant. I broke this story. I revealed to the world, and you first, the mind-numbing truth. Israel used quote-unquote 5G technology, parentheses, and honestly, I do not know what that means, close parentheses. I just know that in essence, what I know as 5G technology means that any device with transistors in them can be controlled remotely. That is, any device with transistors in them can be controlled remotely as long as they have power or are plugged in. Israel is a genuine existential threat to all human dignity, national sovereignties, public safety, civil rights, human rights, privacy, and the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And in retrospect, I thought I should have put due process in there too. An authentic serial killer government willing to use a technology that makes nuclear warfare look like a rational solution to conventional diplomacy. And Jews in America will protect this Jewish monster like they did Harvey for decades, Jeffrey for decades, Sam Bankman-Fried for years, for billions and billions of dollars, Henry Kissinger, what is that? It's not a quote. Semi-quote? Dang, I don't even know what that's called. So I'm just gonna go with quote, even though I used that. I wrote this, so I should know what that is, but I don't. Someone's called it. Darn. So the Henry Kissinger, the quote-unquote Adolf of Southeast Asia. I mean, I quoted myself, if that matters. I'm the one that made that up. Is that cheesy? I don't know. It's accurate. Who slaughtered 2 to 3 million Southeast Asian, vastly a majority of Buddhists. And you will bow and pay from your labor to make sure this Jewish demon never gets hungry, never feels alone, never runs out of ways to slaughter Gentiles it deems quote-unquote anti-Semitic, or Even standing too close to a Gentile, they're going to murder anyways. Any electrical device is a bomb to Israelis now, not theoretically, in real life. This makes me the greatest threat to Israel. Even if I am crazy and making it up, it still makes more sense than bombs, which still makes me the greatest threat to Jewish supremacists around the world. Not even Palestinians can fathom what I'm saying. Like, they need to protect their credibility. They don't want to go too far in destroying Israelis. I do. 2025 is going to be a Netanyahu-free year. Trust me. I will get European Aryans to handle him with this. He is putting them all in grave danger because this was supposed to be a secret for another 50 years at least. Okay, it's like this. And this is, I'm going to take a pause real quick. This is why I'm reading this, because I had already read this 4 times before. On my 5th time reading it, I realized what I was doing in this segment. I'm showing you how you don't think that secrets can be kept from the public anymore. Or that if a secret were to be revealed, that it could have any real impact on your view of the world as it is. So it's like, hey, we find out who really killed JFK. Well, okay, let's say it was the CIA. In the back of your head and in the pit of your soul, the pit of your gut, and in the core of your heart, I mean, what do you think is going to happen? If they can tell you the exact CIA agent that did it, who cares? If they could tell you the exact mobster, in both the CIA and the mobster theory, it's there are 3 shooters, but, let's just go with, I gotta dumb it down anyways to the smallest, what is that? Common denominator that you get. And just the fact that there's even more than one shooter is something that you can't even process. So therefore you negate it as irrelevant. It's with the JFK shooting. And getting into further the fucking RFK shooting, you don't even know, that's the even more insignificant to you. So if it were to come out that JFK or the RFK was really shot from behind and not from the front where Sirhan was standing, then you still don't care that it was an off-duty LAPD or not a LAPD. It was a former South American CIA asset. It was a CIA asset that was formerly operating in South America, that was working as a temporary security guard for the hotel, carrying a pistol, walking behind Robert F. Kennedy, that shot him, which would implement the police. Not just the LAPD, but the Fraternal Order of Police. None of that stuff matters to you, because even if it turns out to be true, in your greatest perception of what you think is good or bad or right or wrong, you really know none of that actually matters. You have no power, no say. And if you invest in any emotional response to such a big deal type stuff, like, 9/11, okay, they say it's an inside job. What does it mean by they say it's an inside job? What does it even mean? You got 3 stories that we got: Muslims, inside job, and Israel. What does an inside job mean? That means people in the U.S. government did it. So it's kind of like the JFK thing. Okay, well, what people? What are they? Are they doing it because they want to make the American government stronger than the American people? Is that the objective? Because that has immediate personal benefits to the individuals, so therefore It's no greater conspiracy other than a momentary influx of a bunch of greedy people coordinating their efforts in order to accomplish a quick payout, like the fucking war on terror, if you want to call that a quick payout. Well, I mean, it was a quick payout. It worked. Dick Cheney's fucking endorsing a Democrat now and being exonerated. Now that he's endorsing a Democrat, this is going to completely annihilate my other thing that I've been pumping out there, which is that Flight 93 was not, there were no terrorists on Flight 93. This is the crazy thing about it. There were supposed to be 4 planes. So they reported that there were 4 planes. The 4th plane that they put there was actually not the plane that was intended to be the 4th plane. It just happened to be a plane that Dick Cheney ordered to be shot down using his unlawful presidential authorization code, which George Bush, who probably would have given it anyways, hadn't given because he was being rushed to Air Force One in Florida and put up in the air, and for some reason in Air Force One was incommunicado with every system in the American military and intelligence network, so that Dick Cheney was literally the controlling everything. And at that time, Donald Rumsfeld communicated to him, hey, what are the orders? And Dick Cheney said, shoot down anything that's suspicious. And Donald Rumsfeld said, is that presidential level confirmation? Dick Cheney said yes, without getting the formal steps of actually getting presidential. Like, hey, I know what George would say in this situation. We're best friends. So just take my word for it. And Donald Rumsfeld conveyed those orders to military personnel, and military personnel followed orders, and those orders resulted in a flight that had swayed off of its course because it was looking for a place to land, and every other place was backed up, and all it has was passengers to be shot down, and it got shot down. And then afterwards, you understand, this is the revelation that, inside job. Again, what does that mean? It means white people, in essence. Think about that. Let's just chew on. That's the entry level. Next level up from inside job is white people. Okay? There's another level above that. And then even another one above that. Because above the white people is Christians. Not Muslim fundamentalists. Okay? And then above that, it gets a little bit more specific. And then above that, it gets a little bit more specific. And then above that, it gets really freaking crazy specific. But that is all stuff that you guys were like, hey, I could barely take that it fucking happened, let alone what happened. I don't care about all that shit. I don't care that on September 11th, Building 7 and Building 1 and Building 2 fell. I don't care that the date and the buildings that fell are strangely united, reflect each other even. I don't care that in 1993 the Fraternal Order of Police renamed the local police union in Ground Zero Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 911 Law Enforcement Officers Lodge, which is the Leo Lion Lodge, which is where you're going to start getting into old school human sacrifices. And even deeper, so this is not even on that level, but this is still something that you guys can't process, and it's still a secret, and makes me sound crazy, as if this is you have no alternative vision of how the actual process of the phone networks that we relied on, like Julian Assange got famous for hacking telephone networks. how that system was connected in order for phone calls to be able to be made around the world. It wasn't a satellite. Do you understand what I'm saying? You could call anywhere in the world where there was a phone and it wasn't satellite. Do you understand what I'm saying? That information that went from one line to another had to travel a route. That route was terrestrial. It had to be a hard line. The line had to go someplace in order to be able to connect with every other place potentially available. So you had to have a hub type points. And the hubs themselves had to be interconnected so as to be instantaneous. So that when you're talking on the phone to somebody around the world, it's not like a radio message in which your voice is being delayed by, like during the Vietnam War when the Gulf of Tonkin situation happened, despite that being a fake situation and it was all fabricated for whatever reason, the one part that was real was that before they came up with the idea to turn it into a fake attack, they were thinking it was a real attack. But the problem was that because they were relied on radio waves back then, it took 45 minutes for the responses, the communications to be relayed from the ship in Vietnam to the Gulf of Tonkin to DC, where the decisions were being made by like the Kissinger and shit like that, and Ellsberg and all these guys like that. And it was during the delay of those messages in which they thought, is the ship sunk? You think they got sunk? That they were like, hey, wait, if we don't know, we could say whatever we want. And then if we get caught, we could just say, oops, oh, we just went with information that we had available to us before, this other stuff came, sorry. If we don't get caught, we don't got to say anything. And they came up with the idea like, hey, the ship was attacked. And then that got exposed. And what did they do? They said, oops, it was a miscommunication because of the delayed communication. But on a telephone, you don't have that. If you're talking to somebody in Europe from California, you don't have a 45-minute delay from what you say. You might have maybe a second or two delay, but I don't even think you have that. So what route is, and you can't, like they have, think about the power lines right now, the digital cable lines under the thing, how many lines, they don't have like 50 or 80, 60 lines at the bottom of the ocean doing this digital information. It's a big deal to put a line across. And that's the same thing with telephones. They had to go the same route. So they're not going to have like 50,000 telephone lines connecting the Western Hemisphere to the Eastern Hemisphere. Do you understand? They're going to try to consolidate. At most, they're going to have two. One for north and one for south. That's at most. But they could also have all of south just routed through central into north, and then one line into the Eastern Hemisphere. And that is from what I'm obviously not an expert, but that's what I'm seeing as more, what do you call it? Capitalistically orientated frame of mind would come up with. Because if you have 50 lines too, then you're going to start having the capacity for 50 different people to own each of the lines. If you have one line, you control ownership more effectively too. And therefore you control access to the information available. So, are you ready? I mean, and this is a crazy thing too is, well, I guess, I mean, I say it. I'm just going to continue reading. Alright, so where do I go here? Trust me, I will get European Airlines to handle it. He's putting them all at grave danger because this was supposed to be a secret for another 50 years at least. Okay, it is like this. After 1945, the UN decided to... Okay, all the phones through Israel telecommunication... Okay. So it's like this. After 1945, the UN decided to aid the fledgling Israeli state with an economic opportunity, in essence, a global contract to do a certain job. And that job was to handle every phone call through Israeli telecommunications networks. From then till cellular, Israel could access any phone line connected to their system or systems. And while you believe when a phone is hung up, the mic is off, just like you, I should put still in brackets right there, you still believe when your smartphone or desk cam are off, they cannot transmit images, right? In truth, Israelis could use any telephone microphone of any phone plugged in to hear, listen, observe, and record every sound within earshot, on demand. And every telephone in the Gentile United States of America was in the Israeli networks or network. Do you get it yet? Nothing is new under the sun. So says the Jewish scriptures. An entire quote-unquote Jewish Bible book is about this observational reality. And I have read it no less than 25 times in my life. The book, that particular book in the Jewish Bible. I've read a bunch of the books in multiple times. Isaiah is probably the next one that I've read. Proverbs I've used to read. I was a semi-religious off and on up until the age of 27. And during that time, in my most devoted periods, which expanded several years, blocks at a time, I was very diligent in this practice of reading a Proverbs a day, because there's basically like 32 Proverbs or 30 Proverbs or something like that. So if you can do it, read it a monthly. So I was very good at doing that. So I read Proverbs, and then I did through other studies at Gang of Time. So don't get me wrong, I've read a lot. And I've read the New Testament 27 times from front to back, the whole thing in completion. So, and I don't mention the title of the book intentionally. I don't know. This is stupid. I guess I'm explaining, so I shouldn't have to do this. It's like an artist explaining their art. But, I mean, this is all information technically you all know without knowing that you know it. Because the way the media uses Jewish mythology and normalizes it and conditions it. Repetition is key. So the more Jewish mythology you're exposed to, the more mundane it becomes. The more mundane it is, the more rational it is. Because it's everywhere you go. It's like a house of mirrors. You're seeing the same thing. So, well, duh, why wouldn't it be? So there's a lot of information about Jewish mythology that you take for granted is not Jewish mythology, because you have been convinced based on entertainment, which is entering the tane. Enter is to penetrate. The tane is the reflective surface, usually the foil-like material on the back of the glass pane that together make a modern-day mirror. So which is the mirror historically all the way back to Buddhism in 450 BCE. The reflective surfaces of polished metals, which was the mirrors that they had available to them at that time, were used as analogies for the human mind or the human psyche or psychology. So entering the tane, and then Carl Jung later on reveals in basic language that the mind communicates to us through moving images. So the reason they call the act of watching images being projected before you entertaining or entertainment is because they're penetrating the tane. They are inserting or injecting images into your psyche that you in turn have to create in order to see inside of your mind. because you're not seeing them with your eyes. Because that's not how reality works. And once you create them in your mind, your ego comes along and says, ooh, look what I did. Aren't I the greatest? And when somebody like me comes along and says, that's not your image, you're being brainwashed by Jews, you go back to ego and be like, I made those images. I'm not Jewish, so you must be crazy because what you're saying doesn't make any sense at all and isn't based on any part of information that I've ever been exposed to. So I know you are crazy. And so I am. And so I am. But Europeans translating it in the 15th century changed the word to church. All right, the word is Ecclesiastes. Okay. By the way, the Greeks used it in their time. It is said the Hebrews. Okay, chew on that too. It's a Greek word. That's another point that I'm trying to make here. It is not Hebrew. It's irrefutably fucking a Greek word. Just food for thought. Okay. There's no Jewish legend of some Gentile tyrant forcing the Pharisees or the scribes or the rabbis or the Sadducees, whoever was around at the time, whatever priesthood or the Levitical priesthood or any of the motherfuckers ever forcing them to compose a material and insert it into the Jewish structure, and then against their will or something like that. And then they got caught. Nope. So, for whatever reason, Hebrews, back in 300 something, I mean, they might date it earlier, but trust me, 300, based on everything I studied, that's the earliest Ecclesiastes could be. When you consider that it's a variation of source material, because that's what Jews do. Jews take, improvise, if you want to call it that, and then rebrand. That's what they did with the alphabet. That's what they did with their religion. That's what they did with the that's what they even do now. I mean, their religion still. Look at this. If America says women should have equal rights, but Yahweh says women should be chattel, all right, and you're Jewish, who do you side with? Okay? In order for you to call yourself Jewish and to stay true to your roots, do you betray Yahweh and adopt the anti-Semitic, American, Gentile distortion of the laws of Yahweh as prescribed in Mishnah and say all that is wrong, my Gentile brothers? They got it right. Now, this is where it gets tricky. A Jew, by definition, you have to understand, this is my whole point. A Jew is the person that says what they know to be untrue, under the pretext that in the service of God there can be no evil done. And in the interaction with those that are not of God, aka ergo Gentiles, you are not bound by the laws of Yahweh as prescribed towards the fellow Jews, which is apartheid, whatever. But anyways, so if you know that your Gentile companion wants to feel like you are their friend and are not in opposition to their identity, their culture, their values, and their fucking loved ones, like their moms and their wives and their daughters, their versions of moms, wives, and daughters, in which they're not chattel, but they're equally viable sentient life forms that are not distinguished as lesser or degrading or freaking the root of all evil or property. That's, you get it? That's too hard for them to gather. So rather than go through the whole fucking issue of explaining to the Gentile why considering women chattel, which is property, which is slavery, is in line with the will of God, the Jew, you have to understand, this is Judaism. The Jew says, I agree, women's rights. Support women's rights all the way. I'm there. I'm with you. 100%. The women's, whatever women's rights thing, let's do it. That is not reality. And you don't think Jews work to fucking hurt you? You don't think Jews work women? You don't think Jews are actively engaged in working to hurt you? Okay? I read this book in 2017, and I took these notes in 2017 when I read this book. I found it for $1 at the Goodwill. So I was like, yeah, why not? I got it. I was in a reading mode at that time. I used to read like 3 or 4 books a week. Sometimes, depending on the thickness, and sometimes more, but for the most part, 3 or 4 a week. But it wasn't until when did I post this? Around this time. I don't know when this is posted. Around 2023, that I took these notes I already had. I kept these notes just like this in other areas. But I put this together because it wasn't until 2023 that I started to realize these names. Oh, this is what it was. I saw this woman interviewed. I saw this lady Grant interviewed. What was this lady's name? What's her name? Grant? I don't know her full name. But whoever her name is, something Grant, obviously. I saw an interview with her. Tony Grant. Okay, there we go. Tony Grant right here. I saw an interview with her where she started to explain that she was Jewish. And I was like, wow, because I have a friend that's named, or had a friend that's named Grant, and there's no Jewish connection whatsoever. There's only the Anglo-Saxon heritage right there. So that's the origin of that name. And what I thought, that made me think, how many other people that this lady, Susan Faludi, wrote about in this book are actually Jews, but she's not thinking in those terms. She's thinking just, this is like a broad overarching attack. There's no real coordination. It's kind of like reflexive. I mean, there is some leadership involved, but it's not really like, it's not, I mean, it's sinister, but it's not, you can't really say, look at them. But, so I was like, let me pick some of the worst fucking people she talks about attacking women in America, using the American system of governance in order to attack women and degrade them in the 1980s. So here was the first one. So Grant nonetheless maintains that it was her review of the professional literature that made her reassess her view of independent career woman. Her singles research took her first to Freud, whose work, she writes in Being a Woman, brought home to her this concept, quote unquote, biology is destiny. That's when she began to sour on modern working women, who is on the modern working woman, I'm assuming, who is often going against her nature and her monthly periods. Then she investigated Jung, and from his works, she gleaned that equality turns a woman into an Amazon, quote unquote, constantly armed and ready for battle, close quote, and makes her, quote, severely neurotic in her denial of her biological clock, close quote. She drew from contemporary scholars too. Her book cites Carol Gilligan's in a different voice as proof that Simone de Beauvoir's analysis of sex roles is absurd and that the quest for romance, not legal rights, is the essence of being a woman. Backlash, Susan Faludi, Part 4, Backlashing the Effects on Women's Minds, Jobs, and Bodies, Chapter 12, It's All in Your Mind. Popular Psychology joins the backlash. Tony Grant, Surrender into Womanhood. Parentheses, Toni Gail Glickman was born in New York City on April 3rd, 1942 and reared in Bayport on Long Island. Seeking to deflect anti-Semitism, her family changed its surname to Grant when she was a young woman. This is interesting. In the interview that I saw, if you were listening to what she's saying and kind of get what they're saying right here, she grew up in a Jewish fucking neighborhood. Just chew on that, okay? So you can listen to them all day long, and all you ever hear is exactly what they say, and all I ever hear is the lie that they're telling. She grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. Who's she trying to fucking hide from? Because she said her family did it, okay? Family, yeah. Oh, it didn't say it here. When she was a young woman. Yeah. When she was a young... Because her family did it. It was a family thing. So... Anyways, then another one here. Ah, this was a terrible one right here. That year, 1985, Dr. Teresa Bernardez was chairing the APA, American Psychiatric Association Committee on Women, which is supposed to be consulted on all proposed new DSM diagnoses affecting women. But the APA president, Robert Perloff, PhD, leading the panel drafting the new diagnosis, never bothered to inform her or anyone else on the committee. By happenstance, as the APA was nearing a vote on the diagnoses, Bernardez heard about it from a friend across the country. She investigated further and discovered that the APA panel planned to add not one but 3 diagnoses affecting women, all in troubling ways. Quote, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, close quote, was another one. A diagnosis that revived the long discredited notion that PMS was a mental illness rather than a simple matter of endocrinology. Quote, paraphilic rapist disorder, close quote, was the third, a diagnosis that the APA panel intended to apply to any man or theoretically woman, but, you know, this is Christian, Anglo-Saxon Christianity right here, so you know what they're doing. Their laws are designed to protect the system as we experience it and as history conveys. It has always, we perceive it to have always been the way that it is, because it's the system that we're in. Okay? So, theoretically, women who repeatedly fantasized about rape or sexual molestation and, quote, this is from the professional psychiatric male doctors, repeatedly acts on these urges or is markedly distressed by them, close quote, okay? If approved, this vague definition could prove a handy insanity plea for any rapist or child molester. And look it's going to get deeper because, again, she doesn't know. She's trying not to be anti-Semitic, so she's not even thinking that it's a they, okay? She's actually, to be rude, she's pretty much saying it's white Christian men doing this. And I'm saying, just like with the whole thing, we have those people in Charlottesville or whatever it was saying Jews will not replace us when they were supporting Trump. And meanwhile, all of Trump's closest guys at the time, Mnuchin, Miller, Kushner, and plus his relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, and Sheldon Adelson being his largest donor. I mean, they're saying Jews will not replace us when, I mean, if a man like Trump, his true crown are the powerful men that surround him, then all of the crown jewels in Trump's crown, the front end at least, are Jews. So, you know, they already did replace you. So, but the reason I'm saying this is very important is the Jewish definition of a rapist or child molester based on Mishnah is totally freaking different than your perception of that, okay? And you say, well, what's the big deal? Okay, well, we're going to get in there. In some ways, the, quote, masochistic personality disorder, close quote, may have been the most regressive and peculiar of the three proposed diagnoses. The APA panel, again headed by this man, Robert Perloff, had come up with 9 characteristics to define masochism as they were strangely broad indeed. They included anyone who, quote, rejects helps, gifts, or favors so as to not be a burden to others, close quote, or, quote, worries excessively, close quote, about troubling others, or, quote, responds to successive or positive events by feeling undeserving, close quote. None of the 9 characteristics of this new, quote-unquote, masochism mentioned taking pleasure in pain. Instead, they described only the self-sacrificing and self-denigrating sort of behavior that is supposed to be typified, which is supposed to typify femininity. In fact, the APA panel went even further, dubbing this problem not a pathological imbalance, but a quote-unquote personality disorder, a category of mental illness that psychiatry defines as least related to social conditions and most rooted in an underlying structure of the individual's personality from early childhood, and so most difficult to change. Backlash, Susan Faludi, 1991, Part 4, Backlashing the Effects of Women's Minds, Jobs, and Bodies, Chapter 12, It's All in Your Mind, Popular Psychology, joins the Backlash section, Feminine Masochism, 80s style, page 357 to 58. Perloff, Genealogy, the vast majority of Argentina, this guy is from Argentina. Argentinian Jews are descended and from immigrants who arrived from Europe. Hebrew surnames, Perloff, okay? So, I'm going to show you another thing right here. Oh, darn, this is the one I was already on. The Jewish Mishnah is completely a different interpretation of what you would say is rape or molestation, okay? So, first things first, here we go. Jewish Mishnah. A girl of the age of 3 years and 1 day may be betrothed by intercourse, and if a Yavam had intercourse with her, he acquires her thereby. Basically, if a Jewish man of some particular rank has sex with a girl that's 3, obviously it's not consensual. We have that clear, okay? So what is the premise? In a legal interpretation, this is Mishnah law. In a legal interpretation, the foundation principle being conveyed here is that consent is not a factor. You want to apply Gentile principles and say, well, in the best case scenario, that's for a girl this age. It's different when they get older. That's the best you can do to defend this shit. Or actually, the best you could do is say I'm lying and this came out of my sick head and I made it up. That's actually the best thing that you could do. But that's also the worst thing that you could do, because when it's finally established the true fact that this is the official Mishnah law as taught in motherfucking rabbi schools all across this motherfucking world, then you just gotta stick with I'm crazy. Because what the fuck else are you gonna do? Look at a Jew exactly the way they are? You see what I'm saying? And if you read that to a Jew, what would they say? Oh, that's not our religion anymore, so then you're not a Jew. If a Christian tells you, yes, I'm a Christian, I just don't believe in Jesus and salvation, they're not a Christian, right? If a Muslim comes and says, oh yes, I am a Muslim, but I don't pray to Allah, I only meditate. I don't read the Quran, I only read poetry. And I don't have any dietary restrictions. Is that a Muslim? So if a Jewish person comes to you and says, if a person that says they're Jewish comes to you and says, I don't agree with Jewish law, one of two things. They are either not a true Jew, they're lying about being Jewish, or they're lying to your face on the way that they feel about the validity of Jewish law versus the legitimacy of being required to tell you the truth. You think a chosen person, chosen by God, is going to sink to your level just so they could tell you a truth and make you feel better as a person? What's the point of being a Jew if everybody's treated the same? What's the point of being the chosen if everybody's fucking equal? Like I said, the Jewish psychology, the interpretation of rape and molestation is different. And I'm showing you right here that this is the coordinated effort that was being done by a Jewish man to... This is the DSM-2 is Europe and America, by the way. I think it might even be India, but I'm just going to go because that's part of the Anglosphere and controlled by English common law still. But so... Oh, and Australia and New Zealand. So New Zealand, Europe, including Germany and France. I would say there are probably a lot of countries in Africa that rely on the DSM, specifically the French-speaking ones. Niger is probably the one that comes to mind the most. I don't know the other ones. Algiers. So those are probably DSM too. Okay, so you understand. See this? You have one Jewish man using his position to fucking attempt to contaminate the entire Gentile fucking global infrastructure of mental health with the vile, disgusting notions of Mishnah in order to justify all this right here. All this right here. Finally, if one of all those with whom relations are forbidden, as stated in the Torah, ergo her father or her husband's father, engaged in intercourse with her, they are executed by the court for engaging in intercourse with her, and she is exempt because she is a minor, all right? Who's a minor? So they do recognize at least that a girl that's 3 years and 1 day is a minor. So that is a degree of some type of progress. But these are Jews. This is what I'm gonna get across to you. Jews will always sink lower than you are willing to go. If the girl is less than the age, younger than 3 years and 1 day, the status of intercourse with her is not that of intercourse in a halakhic senses. Wait, before I go further, stop. Listen, motherfuckers, this is Jewish law. They told you it's a sin up here. Kill him. But, hold up. If she's not a minor and she's less than a minor, then intercourse with her does not count as intercourse according to the definition of intercourse in a religious sense. Rather, listen, they're explaining it. These are men. This is the Perloff. This is what I'm showing you. They try to do, and they're not done trying. They're doing this. Rather, it is like placing a finger into the eye. What does that mean? Listen to what they're saying. Why do they want this thing that gets a specific type of man off? Perhaps, maybe the Jewish guy doing this knows that beneath the veil of the exterior attire of the Jewish image in modern day society, that this is the foundation of the religion, that the only reason a man calls himself a Jew is because this is available to him without any repercussions whatsoever, even to the point where they will manipulate the laws of every motherfucking country in the Western civilization of the modern era in order to make it so that listen to what they're saying, to the other end of this. What happens to the victims of this if they ever wake up? Hey, who are we saying? Hey, Dad, you listening closely, people? Hey, Rabbi. Hey, Uncle. Hey, Grandpa. Hey, brother. You had sex with me before I was 3 years old. Repeatedly. And that fucked me up. We got a diagnosis for that too. That bitch is crazy. That is a, what do they call it? That is a personality disorder, a category of mental illness that psychiatry defines as the least related to social conditions and most rooted in the underlying structure of the individual's personality from early childhood, and so most difficult to change. And if you understand what they're saying, is that means the most legally sound justification for institutionalization of a non-consensual within non-consensual parameters, meaning that a doctor can institute a person that falls into a personality disorder against the consent of the patient. So chew on this. You got a lot of Jewish doctors, and it's a big thing to be a Jewish psychologist, and they're listening to all of this shit. They don't give a fuck. But that's not even the last one either. Lansing's example only underscores the point driven home in the final take on Fatal Attraction. The best single woman is a dead one. Sherry Lansing is a Jewish American actress and former film studio executive. She was the first woman to head a major studio, Hollywood studio. And this is a Jewish virtual library, Sherry Lansing /. Okay? So imagery. Oh, so here, how does this all work out too? And again, she blames Christians, but she's not seen the role of Jews in it. Maybe she's Jewish for all I fucking know. When the United States issued a statement supporting equal rights for women in 1948, when the United Nations issued a statement supporting equal rights for women in 1948, the United States government was the only one of 22 American nations that wouldn't sign it. In the Western Hemisphere is another way of saying it. So, again, she's alluding to the fact that, okay, this is the Christian fundamental right that was behind these activities. But again, who had the power? They act like they were the oppressed motherfuckers. The richest fucking people back in this time, the ones that were controlling the perception of American ideals and the dream and the roles that people had in society, were Hollywood. And if you want to say today it's not true, it's a conspiracy theory or anti-Semitic to say Jews control Hollywood today, you go to 1948 and that was it. Jews were Hollywood. There was no wiggle room. There was no wiggle room. There was no competition. Jews were Hollywood. And Hollywood defined Americanism. And Americans believed that it was their duty to defend Americanism from foreign threats, including pagan-esque ideas that I just showed you. You had the elite of society on all entertainment, right here, medicine, and what was the other one? Entertainment, medicine, and what was she doing over here? And literature. I don't want to say education, but it feeds into education. So here we go. These new images were, of course, no more realistic than the last decade's output, but their effect on lives of women would be quite real and damaging. And I was going to do something else, but I guess I'll just finish back on this. This is already going to be an hour. I got to on YouTube on this one. Okay, right. Okay, but anyways, America, I am real. I am terrifying in many ways, but so is life. This is a war for yours and our emotional health, psychological fortitude, and I hate saying this, yours and our spiritual revolution. And just on a footnote here, interjection on a personal note, despite people that I study conveying the spiritual components of information in my world existence view, I have no sense of spirituality or spiritualness or spirits or divinity or any of that shit like that. None of that registers to me whatsoever. But I understand that doesn't necessarily mean I'm fucking right. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna fucking change either. So that's where we're at. I'll use it to fit in, because that's human. But I won't believe it. But I'll tell you straight up, I don't believe that shit. But I'll still use it. If that makes me a liar, then whatever. As long as I'm not a Jew lying to your face in order to deceive you. And Jews are the enemy of humanity and the healthy human psyche that is the natural state of the human being. And this is why their entire mythology is founded on the idea of the sinful nature, because they're saying, no, the natural state that you are is fucked up, so don't expect anything other than fucked up. And that is the primary message that Judaism conveys to Gentiles. This is your Gentile world, and it's a fucked up place, and we're gonna make sure that it's a fucked up place and a fucked up experience for you, because we don't even want to be here with you motherfuckers. But as long as we're here, we're gonna fucking make sure that you know that you are not Jews. And Jews are Jews are the natural enemy of humanity and a healthy human psyche that is a natural state of the human being, which I think is what you are, right? Every Jew has chosen a side and will serve and will do anything to survive in order to serve it still, unless the human being beneath the Jew can face, accept, and assimilate the infant genital mutilation that made the Jew. And I've just showed you right now that it's not just circumcision. It's not the only form of infant genital mutilation used to obstruct the human psyche from developing beyond the Jew psychology. You understand? It is a physical trauma inflicted at the most vulnerable point of development that scars, if not amputates in some degree, portions of the human psyche that turns the identity of being a Jew into a concentration camp existence of fucking survival and competitive fucking desperation. The infant genital mutilation that made the Jew more powerful than their own human being and convinced them that a Jew isn't really just another Gentile. Then, that is not a Jew. Get it? Jew is not a genetic pool or even an ethnicity. It sure ain't no race. It is a mental state of dis-ease. You can't be a Jew unless your foundation is human. Does that make sense? Does that help you guys out a little bit more there? There's a little footnote in there too. It is a mental state of dis-ease which amplifies egoism and degenerates the individual into a meaningless commodity of a greater cause they have little or no role in. See Mishnah and women as chattel. And just because I have it right here. Right here, booyah. In effect, Mishnah prescribes the same models of acquisition for wives as for Canaanite slaves and real property. By money, by deed, or by usurpation. Usurpation means use, which means what did I just tell you Mishnah said for 3? What do you got to do to have marry betroth a minor in Jewish Mishnah? What is usurpation? What do you have to do? What does a man have to do to marry a minor? Because she can't convey her consent. She's 3 years and 1 day. She can't convey her consent. So what does he have to do in order to establish betrothal with her? According to Mishnah. This is a different book, by the way. Chattel Person, Status of Women. This is considered the first book written by a woman on studying Mishnah in all of Jewish history. Okay? And they buried it. But what do you know? The woman found out, hey, the men were right. So, and here's another one here too. Oh, okay. This reduction of women's personhood generates a view of women as intrinsically less worthy than men, which shockingly to the modern minds informs Mishnaic priorities for safeguarding the life, the property, or the sexual integrity of men and women respectively. In almost every sense, the man comes first. How can we make sense of these rules? The sages offer no explanation. So, women as chattel. In a desperate attempt to, now this is back to what being the Jewish experience is. In the mind, this is why they have to identify as a Jew, because they are in a desperate attempt to barely survive this world of menacing aliens. That is the Jew in the human being that self-identify as such. That's your enemy. That's a footnote, I'm telling you right now. That's your enemy. Now, based on me revealing that, you understand on another level, a Jew can't fake it. This is another important component, because to be real is to become real. So therefore, their deceptions are based on a house of mirrors again. It's a reflection of a reflection of a reflection of a reflection. When you get past all the reflections and you're looking straight at the motherfucking image, the image is the image is the image is the image. But even the image in one sense is a reflection, but the image is the image is the image is the image. That's what in Jewishness is called, oh, I don't think I have it on that one. Leviticus 18, the nakedness. In Judaism, nakedness is a really big deal. It's a really big deal. Because when you understand, but nakedness again is the organic state, right? It's the organic state, the original being. So here's one example. So the main point is this: Leviticus 18. You get into this part down here. The main part is the top part, because it's telling you after the doings of Egypt. So what I do in this typically is I juxtapose Egypt with Europe, and I juxtapose Canaan with America. The United States of America. So to convey, to let you see, these things don't change just because you're here. To a Jew, after the doings of the land of Egypt, that's Europeans, wherein ye dwelt, ye shall not do. Don't obey their laws. After the doings of the land of Canaan, America, the United States of America, whither I bring you, you shall not do, neither shall you walk in their ordinances, which is laws. You shall do my judgments and keep my ordinances. So if an American says having sex with a girl that's younger than a minor is a crime punishable by death, don't fucking fall for that trick, Jews. Be a true Jew and follow Mishnah. Don't now that's in one sense a gross overstatement, because Mishnah was written in response to Emperor Hadrian coming down on the Jews, because the Zionism in the age of Hadrian figured
just kind of like, oh my gosh, it's almost like the Zionists of today. You think this is the first Zionism? No, the Zionists of the age of Hadrian, which is about the 2nd century around there, AD, came up with the idea that only Jews were supposed to be living in Israel. So what did they start doing? They started killing everybody, and they killed hundreds of thousands of fucking people in mass slaughterings because they thought that it was their time to take back the land. Hadrian went in there and fucking killed 5 or 7 Jews for every fucking Gentile that they killed. And the Jews teach that to be that Hadrian is an anti-Semitic, warmongering fucking Hitler of the years past. And then after that, he banned all kinds of shit. He banned circumcision because he's like, fuck this. If you guys are going to start killing people, he associated the brutality of their religious practices with the brutality of their human. And this is the fucking Romans who recognize this shit. Okay? But then in the same chapter, trip out on this. Oh no, I don't even have it here. Oh, here we go. But 6. None of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him. So no Jews. Don't any Jews to uncover their nakedness. Okay? Now, the Jewish people, again, this is how they lie to you in your face. All the rabbis will teach publicly in English or in a language other than Hebrew that what this means is that no Jews are supposed to have incestual relationships with relatives. That's banned. Because it goes on from 6 to 23. The next of it is, you shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, the nakedness of the wife of your father, the brother of your father, the father of your father, the daughter of your father, the daughter of your daughter's father, the daughter, your daughter. I don't know if it says your daughter. Actually, I don't even think it says your daughter. But anyways, so, but they want you to think of nakedness as sexual because that's the way their brains work. This is what I mean. They can't, even in their lies reveal the truth of them, but they don't reveal the truth. Because if they were to tell you the truth, again, that would make them real. And they can't fake being real. They can only fake being fake. So they can say that nakedness means sex. Meanwhile, here's another example of what nakedness means. This is from Isaiah 47. This is a humiliation of Babylon. Apparently, Yahweh has decided to destroy Babylon for their sinful acts against him. And this is verse 3, your nakedness shall be uncovered. So if the Jews are correct and the rabbis, then their nakedness. So that means that your nakedness, they're going to have sex. Yes, your shame will be seen. Do you understand? So while the Jews are trying to hook and bait you in a Donald Trump-like style of con man to make you, oh, nakedness? Look over here. Sex. Nakedness? Oh, sex, right? Porn. Oh, yeah. Look at over here. That's what we're talking about. We're very moral people. We're very ethical people. We think of everything. We've got laws that define how not to have sex with everybody. But meanwhile, they're telling you, don't fucking expose the criminal fucking violations of Egyptian law or European law or the violations of American law or Canaan law that you see your kin doing, lest their shame be revealed to the Gentile world. So you become, am I my brother's keeper? I am my brother's keeper. And what do you keep? I keep my brother's shame. And what does your brother do? My brother acts shamefully so that I can prove to him that I am loyal by keeping the darkest, dirtiest, nastiest secrets from praying eyes. And who is the bad person in Judaism? Oh, let me just do this real quick and then I'll close up because I'm not even going to finish reading that shit. Who's the bad guy? They don't have a devil. They don't have Satan. What is their bad guy called? Evil character in Judaism. I spelled that wrong. Whatever. You'll figure it out. What is he called? What is he called?
The guy in the Garden of Eden. Who's the motherfucker in the Garden of Eden? Judaism also teaches the existence of evil and suffering in the world is a result of Adam and Eve disobeying God in the Garden of Eden. But, okay, they don't have the same exact figure. Darn. Alright, I'm just gonna have to cut to the chase here and fucking spell it out. Who is the accuser in Judaism? In Judaism, Satan is also known as the accuser in the heavenly tribunal. Satan is a complex figure in Judaism. Oh, wow, very complex. Oh, very, very something. You guys are never going to figure it out. He's so complex, your Gentile minds will never fathom the great extent of the Jewish divine inspiration. Oh, no, Jewish minds didn't come up with this shit. No, no, no. It was such a big God that, oh, wow, it's so complex. It's very simple, guys. It's very simple. It's some perverted, nasty, fucking disgusting men creating a system to justify their perverted, nasty, disgusting manhood. And different sects have different interpretations of his identity. Talmudic or Midrashic literature, Satan is described as a trickster who enjoys tempting people and testing the righteous. He is also known as the evil inclination and angel of death. Satan in Kabbalah, Satan is an agent of God who tempts humans into sinning so he can accuse them in a heavenly court. Conservative Judaism, Satan is a metaphor for the Yetzer Hara, or rather a literal agent of God. Orthodox Judaism, Satan is involved in religious life more inclusively than other sects and is mentioned in some daily prayers. Holy shit, I didn't think I was gonna find this out. Reform Judaism, Satan is a metaphor for the Yetzer Hara and symbolizes innate human qualities like selfishness. The angelic or the angel in this incident is referred to as quote unquote Satan. The Hebrew term shatan is a generic noun meaning accuser or adversary and is derived from a verb meaning primarily to obstruct or oppose. Okay. Do you get what I'm telling you? Their bad guy, and I just showed you in modern examples, their bad guy is the one who's willing to fucking expose their nakedness and show you the truth behind all their fucking lies. And so, let me just read this last part. Because I don't even think... maybe I got it all. Oh, I can't do that. Never mind. Anyways, I declare war on Israel. You should think about it too.